Hello everybody and welcome to another Armoured Clash video. I'm going to check out another of these fantastic starter sets. This one is for the Commonwealth. Well, as I'm sure you know by now, I'm quite a fan of War Cradle stuff. Dystopian Wars and Armoured Clash are two excellent tabletop miniatures games. Armoured Clash is 10mm scale. You could call that epic scale if you like. And it is fantastic for huge sweeping armies of a steampunk style, a dystopian age. And they bring out these amazing starter sets, which are jam-packed with stuff, I've got to say. Now, they send them to me free, so I can show them to you, but that doesn't change my opinion. I still think this is a fantastic game, and I'd tell you whether I was getting this stuff free or not. My opinions are always my own. I don't charge for these videos apart from getting free stuff. So let's get into the Commonwealth set. Now, before we do that, actually, I want to tell you, don't forget if you play Armoured Clash to always go check out armouredclash.com because they are continually updating the ORBATs, which are the orders of battle that give you all the information about all the different units. And the rules themselves are being updated as well. Now, when it comes to the rules, I keep an eye on them and I make sure that I update my rules summary and reference, which is on my website at orderofgamers.com. So that's just recently been updated with a few tiny little tweaks according to the latest updates, but they're constantly tweaking the game and making it more balanced and working on it. So always check before you play a game, go to the website, check out the latest ORBATs for your faction. Now, the other exciting news is that War Cradle have a blog, and on the blog they've just announced that their other game, Wild West Exodus, is heading for a new edition. I am really excited about this because I just got the starter set that they brought out some years ago for Wild West Exodus, and it is a very cool game. It is a lot of fun. I just haven't played it much because they weren't developing the game. There's lots of old figures from the previous iterations of the game available, but they weren't bringing out any new stuff. And I just put it aside while I was concentrating on things like Dystopian Wars and Armoured Clash. But I'm really happy to see it's coming out. It's 28mm scale, so it's normal sort of heroic miniature scale. And again, it's in the dystopian age, so it's all weird war, steampunk kind of stuff with a bit of Wild West thrown in as well. And there's heaps and heaps of factions and models that they can re-release and remake and make that game their own. So I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with that. I think it's going to be super cool, and hopefully they'll keep sending me stuff so I can show it off to you. Okay, let's look at the Commonwealth set. Now, I've got a little bit of a soft spot for the Commonwealth because they were the first faction I painted up back in Dystopian Wars with the Hunt for Prometheus starter set. And I've always liked them because they're sort of a Russian post-revolutionary kind of force. Here's the back of the box and everything you get. Check it out. It's absolutely full to the gills with models. And also, don't forget you get some dystopian industrial modular terrain as well. There's buildings that you can build up in different configurations. Now, of course, you get the standard stuff, which is the template sprue. You get a map. You get 2 sheets of tokens. You also get the latest rulebook, and you get 2 packs of dice and one of the decks of Command and Conquer cards. Now, of course, each player needs a deck of these. So if you're a player, you want to grab this faction and get straight into it, you'll get everything you need to play in this set for your side. Now, as for the models themselves, well, of course, there are lots of bases. Here they are, and we've got some different bases in this game. There are some larger ones. You can see here, there's a couple of flight bases here. These are for the jet bikes in the game. It's a little bit different. There's also these larger bases we haven't seen before, which are a bit longer than the normal square base. These are the sprues that you get for the army, as there are 2 different types, 4 of each sprue, and with that, ingenious design, isn't it? They've got an entire army into those 2 sprues, which is remarkable because some of these models have 2 variants as well. So there's a whole lot of variety packed onto those sprues. Now, before we get into the individual forces, the Commonwealth, of course, as I said, is post-revolutionary Russia. So it's after the Romanovs, the revolution that kicked out the monarchy in Russia. Of course, this is all, dystopian weird stuff, so it's not historically accurate, but it uses history as a basis for a kind of fantasy version of the 19th and early 20th century. But in the Commonwealth for Armoured Clash, they're still led by a Tsar who basically has a lot of influences over the council. It's a sort of socialist democracy, but the Tsar is basically running things. And his daughter, the Tsarina, has recently been recruited by the secret police, who are called the Oprichnenina. Look, my Russian pronunciation is atrocious, so I won't even attempt to do that. But they're basically the secret police. People are disappearing. Political opponents are disappearing. It's basically your classic kind of Soviet Russia kind of thing. Also, you have another important figure who is a mercenary, or previously a mercenary, called the Black Wolf, who's married the Tsarina, and he is gunning for power as well. So they basically have this overview of the faction, and then there's some interesting faction characters to give the faction interests and personality. Now, the Commonwealth have entered a new era of prosperity, and they're starting to join in the huge conflicts of the dystopian age. And also, they have an emphasis on cryo-weaponry. So, cryo-weaponry being, of course, weapons that freeze people. And the army itself is kind of surrounded by its own microclimate. Because it's got so many of these cryo-weapons, the army just basically trudges forward in a perpetual kind of micro-winter, which is pretty cool. So let's look at the individual forces in the battle group, shall we? First up, we've got this Berserker gang. Now, as I said, my Russian is terrible, so I'll mangle all these names, but the Azdaea Berserker gang, these are basically prisoners who have been experimented upon with experimental drugs and turned into crazy berserkers that operate at high temperatures because of how it changes their blood and their muscles and all the rest of it. So they have a terrible tendency of, if they get too hot or a spark goes off wherever they are, they explode. They're also wearing explosive collars. So if they get out of hand and start killing the wrong people, they can be blown up from over a mile away. So it's not a good life being a berserker, but there you go. This unit are the Cossack of Charka war dogs. And as you can see, definitely a Cossack feel to this army, but these war dogs are specially trained to wear magnetic bombs on them, and they basically are tank hunters. So they rush forward underneath tanks, discharge their bombs on the underside of the tanks, and then run away, and the tanks blow up. The normal troops are this rifle platoon. They're called the Ryadovoy rifle platoon, and as you can see, they've got that Cossack outfit, the heavy coats, and the fur hats. And again, that's because there's so much cold weaponry in the army. They're basically, rugged up all the time because of that. But they've just got rifles. We've also got this very nice command unit, which has a banner and a commander on a horse. Really nice little unit, that one. These are called the Steppe Outrider Cavalry. They're Mongolian troops. So very much traditional troops. They use bow and arrows and javelins with the addition of, explosive tips. But they're kind of the Mongol hordes, basically. Now we've got the modern version of cavalry. These are winged hussar tread bikes, basically motorcycle troops. And these are nobility, and they've got this sort of hussar kind of feather headdress thing attached to their back. And these are like shock troops. So as they go into battle, the wind whips through these back pieces and makes a howling sound which terrifies their enemies. Now we've got some field guns. These are the Gobyata field guns, and they basically shoot atomic shells. Not very good for the crews who are actually shooting them, who are sort of dying like flies because of all the radiation, but nobody seems to understand that. And as they point out, there are always more recruits. A variant on that is the Trieste seismic mortars. These are mortar shells. They burrow into the ground a metre or so and then explode. Now, sorry, I've just put blue tack on there to attach it because, of course, I'll be painting this. So I don't want to glue it to the base just yet. Now, getting into the drilling stuff. These are Crot armoured borers. And Aren't they cool? They've got treads on the bottom. These were originally mining vehicles, but that didn't work out because the passageways that they burrowed would collapse and they'd get lost underground, all that kind of thing. So they were repurposed for troop deployment in battles. This version is the Decobras artillery borer, and this has got a rocket launcher at the back. So this deploys once they burrow up to 1.5 kilometres under the surface, and then they pop up, and then out of the back deploys this rocket launcher. How would you be? You're just on the battlefield, this thing pops out of nowhere and then starts shooting rockets at you. Now, there are special subterranean rules that come with this Orbat and with this army, and basically you use these fantastic subterranean markers. So you move these over the battlefield, and then eventually you can deploy your subterranean figures out of these markers or near these markers. Onto the tanks. These are Tsar battle tanks, and they come with an 88mm main gun and three 57mm sponson guns. And they have this unusual design. There's small treads at the back, and then these large, heavy-duty wheels at the front. Very unusual design. The variant on that is the Tsarevna strike tank, and this has the unusual combination of a flamethrower up the front and an indirect bombard at the back. It's an infantry killer. This unusual looking vehicle is a Ryadovoy, oh gee, my Russian is not good, Radina Squadron. It's an infantry support vehicle, slow moving, pretty exposed for the guy in the cockpit there, but it's a mobile gun platform and has a machine gun. And then we have this fantastic airborne cavalry. Check it out. I love this base that can make really dynamic configurations for these vehicles. This is a Keshig Sky Outer Wings. Oh, gee, the names are a bit of a mouthful. Aggressive skirmishers favoured by Mongolian nobility. They've got machine guns and they can travel up to 200 kilometres an hour. And you've got a sort of command figure here. This is a little resin piece you can attach for your commander figure or your officer figure. But aren't they cool? These remind me of the first designs of I forget what they were called for Warhammer 40,000. They had the sort of, what were they called? Speeders or something? Sort of reminds me of those. Very cool figure. And then we've got the absolute star of this set. Look at this hunk of resin. It is huge. There's my hands, so you can see how big it is. Absolutely amazing. Really amazing piece. Now you've got all the sort of drilling piece here, deploying troops out of a ramp here, weaponry on the outside. There are a couple of different configurations. You can either build it as the Mamont subterranean cryo transport, which has got an immense cryo generator, which can blast minus 200 Celsius blasts at the enemy. And it's good for transporting the berserkers, because those berserkers, as I said before, they don't like to be in warm temperatures or they can just blow up. So they keep them semi-frozen in stasis inside these things until they can come charging out and kill the enemy. Ugh. Or it can be a Myron super heavy borer, which is a heavily armoured carrier and can carry tanks. So you can have tanks coming out of there. Amazing thing. I think this is one of the most impressive pieces for Armoured Clash as yet. And of course, there's an aircraft model available. This is separately. You don't buy this with the battle group. You buy it separately, but that's your aircraft. It's a Komet Interceptor Squadron. It's a jet. Basically attacks with a machine gun and a very nice aircraft figure. And actually, while I'm talking about aircraft, I've painted up these two aircraft models. This is for the Crown. Look at that, painted up beautifully. It looks fantastic on that flying base. Beautiful. Aircraft are all available separately. And this is for the Empire. Very unusual design there. And these are, really easy to paint and just look fantastic, don't they, when they're painted up? Well, there you have it, folks, the Commonwealth faction battle group for Armoured Clash, another fantastic faction set. And wow, this thing is fantastic. I'm really looking forward to painting that up. I've said fantastic a lot, haven't I? Running out of adjectives. But I just love the models they bring out, and they bring out so much stuff. Every month there's just more and more stuff. And as I said, the announcement of Wild West Exodus in a new edition is really exciting as well. War Cradle doing some very cool things. I will see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to go to the website orderofgamers.com and download my rules and reference. Also, it's on Tabletop Codex, my fantastic rules app. I said fantastic again. Good gaming, everybody. Bye for now.